Hello, thanks for coming back. Hey there, it's Arkeida. Welcome back. Yeah, wow, I'm surprised that I'm still doing this and surprised you're coming back, but still happy nonetheless. All gold stars. I'm just kidding. Actually, I'm not. I love gold stars, but this week is going to be a little bit different because, as you can tell, my background's a little different. Last week, I went to a Booktok event at Barnes & Noble's in Union Square. Barnes & Noble. There's a S at the end of that. Don't bother me. But last week, I went to Barnes & Noble for a Booktok event at their Union Square location, and I left with, in total, about 23 books. Some of them were duplicates, because, gifts. But in total, I left with 16 new books for me and 23 books in the grand total of things. And I wanted to share this with you just because I know I said I wouldn't talk too much about books on here, but I read a lot of books. As we're speaking halfway through February now, I've already completed, I think, 8 or 9-ish books, and I'm just so excited to talk about this with you because the event was amazing and I recommend it at least once. You don't go to a local Barnes & Nobles or bookshop because book events are great. So I will share that this was in fact a ticketed event, but I think that it was worth the money because hello. Okay, I digress. But I bought my ticket for this way back when, in like the middle of January, on a Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the morning. Why? I'll tell you why. So they sold tickets either the full day, the morning, afternoon, or evening. Middle of January, a whole month before this event starts. I'm checking, it's on a Wednesday, mid-January. The entire day ticket is still available. And I'm like, great, I get paid on Friday. I will buy this on Friday so I can get the whole day. I go to sleep. For some reason, I couldn't sleep. I wake up at 3 a.m. and I'm like, what else do I do? Check my phone. I check my phone and the full day is sold out already. And there were a ton of tickets. So I'm like, great, half asleep, trying to find my credit card, trying to find everything so I can get at least the 2 p.m. romance panel and then the 6 p.m. fantasy panel, because the 10 a.m. was gone, and the 10 a.m. was just like the introduction to the event, the opening ceremony, if you will. But I digress, because I'm glad that I got the panelist tickets when I did, because the 2 p.m. panel, top notch, gold stars all around. Same thing, the 6 p.m. panel, fantasy, top notch, gold stars all around. As you can see, because the books, they speak for themselves. So let's start with the romance panel, just because that was the first one of the day that I had attended, and the panelists were amazing. So we had the moderator, Ryan LaSala, as well as the rest of the panelists, Anna Huang, Kennedy Ryan, and Melissa Blair. Oh, and Tessa Bailey. Sorry, forgot one. Some of these authors have been on my TBR list for some time now. I even have a couple of their books on hold. So when I got to see them there, I was like, oh, I have to go buy these books immediately because I need them signed today. Which is great because I was able to get all the books that I wanted signed and even chit chat with some of the authors afterwards. But back to the panel. The reason I loved that one so much was because of the way that they write their female characters. This is like a new genre to me, or new-ish. I never really used to read romance growing up or in my adult life ever until about 2021, I should say, like around that time, around the pandemic time. And that's because I'd never seen romance where it was women of color centered, women of color not trauma centered, dark-skinned women centered, black woman centered. Like, at all. And so I just kind of avoided that genre as a whole and only read fantasy and science fiction. And then 2020 came around and I don't know what it was. My Instagram algorithm must have just changed, because then I was just being targeted by books and seeing more books, and I just downloaded the Libby app and I was searching for things, and I saw a couple of like romance novels pop up, and some of them even had romance novel where the picture on the front was a black woman, and I was like, wait a second, she kind of looks like me, maybe I should give this a chance. Anyway, just hearing these authors talk about like their fully fleshed out women and fully fleshed out main characters, especially those in their female presenting roles, you know, it makes you feel like, wow, you know, this is a character that I can relate to. Because let's be honest, as women, I can only say as women because I'm a woman and I'm a black, dark-skinned woman. As women, we already are these things. We are already individuals with our own thoughts, our own agency, our own emotions to feel to the fullest. And on top of that, we are not side characters in anybody else's story. So my friend said that I should exude more main character energy. This is me exuding my main character energy. I was gonna curse, I didn't curse, but this is me exuding my main character energy right here and now. So I implore everyone else to do that and go pick up a romance novel. But anyway, just talking about this makes me so excited, because I love romance novels, because you get to see a book in fiction where it's female centered, it's female happiness centered, it's female pleasure centered, and not only that, you also get to see them grow, them learn more about themselves with or without a partner, and then find somebody in a consenting manner that will love them for who they are. And if they say no, they don't want anymore, then in this story, person backs off for the most part, unless it's enemies to lovers. I don't know. But or fake dating. Love a good fake dating romance. Then comes the writing of the fictional male character. Fictional. I'm just kidding. I'm engaged. But the fictional male character, which is great because I love them. You love them, you know, like these guys are great, and you know, I love falling into these books. But the biggest takeaway that they said was like, at the core of it, no matter who these characters are that are the love interests, at the core of it, they have to be a feminist. They have to understand that the women that they are in fact pursuing or love, they have full agency of themselves. And if they say yes, then it is a consenting yes. And if they say no, then it is a no, and you need to back the hell off. Which I feel like in reality, not a lot of men get, you know? Like, a lot of men think, oh, no means try harder. It's like, no means I just don't want you. No means goodbye. But in these books, it's nice to know that, you know, when you say no, it means no. And I support women's rights and women's wrongs. But that was kind of the panel, and I loved it so much. And these authors, again, 3 of them had been on my TBR list, and I have a very long TBR list, so I would have eventually gotten to them. And some of them had even been on hold at the library. But with the ticketed entry, it came with like a gift card for each panel, and literally right after the panel ended, I had to run to go and buy these books because they were calling people up by rows to get their books like signed or autographed and personalized, and then take pictures with the author. So here I am in this like 4-story building. The main floor the event was on, the register is broken. The next floor, the line was ridiculously long. The next floor, there was no register. So I had to go all the way back to the first floor with all of the books, pay for it, run all the way back up to the 4th floor, and then get back into my seat. And literally I sat down, I think, for no more than 30 seconds before they were like, 5th row. Needless to say, I got these 3 books. Very excited. The first one is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. A Brooklyn Blade, a Halfling Saga by Melissa Blair, and then Twisted Love, Book 1 by Anna Huang. And I'm very excited. Sorry, no, but for real, I am actually very excited just because romance is very new, but also near and dear to my heart now. And I don't think I ever plan on stopping reading it because I've been enjoying it so far. Whether it's like contemporary romance or YA romance, because at the end of it, it makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. And I think that's a feeling that everyone should have, especially when reading books. And I feel like that warm and fuzzy feeling that I used to have reading books kind of left me a bit in childhood when I was reading fantasy as a child, like How to Deal with Dragons or Magic Tree House. Like those were the books that made me feel warm and fuzzy and adventurous. And now these are those books. And I don't know if it's like I've gotten older or if it's just like my interests have changed, but I'm chasing that same feeling, and this has given me that very same feeling. So that's that for romance. And I have a couple photos, so I'll show you the photos that I got to take with the authors. And here's a clip from the panel.
Has anyone like posted a TikTok yet? Screaming in your brain.
Right. I've actually been writing for about 10 years, been published for about 10 years. So I had several series before Booktok kind of exploded. I think the series that I'm probably best known for on Booktok is the Hoop series. Woo! Yes, the emotional damage. I really lean into like real life. I lean into there's a thread of activism that runs through everything I write, and I'm like, but it's going to be set in the context of a love story. So, and then as I'm writing that first book, I'm like, well, there are people in our life, she's got to have friends and just got to.
And now we're back for the fantasy panel, which another one that was just gold stars all around. Everyone gets a star. You get a star. You get a star. You get a star. I get a star. I actually don't even have gold star stickers, but I should get some. That's going to be like my thing. I'm going to give out gold star stickers. But anyway, the panel was amazing. Also, it was moderated by Tracy Dion. Yeah, so funny story. I am a very chaotic person, as you can probably tell. I look put together, but internally my brain is chaos at all times. And when I bought the tickets for this event, I just knew I wanted to go to this event. I didn't look at the information on this event. I didn't look at who the panelists were on this event. I just showed up, vibes only. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, that's Tracy Dion. She's there. And my friend is like, did you not look at anything? I'm like, no. She's like, did you know anything that was going on? I'm like, no, I just showed up. I just show up. I don't know how I survive in life. But anyway, I just show up. Tracy Dion is there. And I had already read her first book, or the first book in the series, Legendborn. And I haven't read the second one yet. And obviously I borrow all my books from the library, so I didn't have a hard copy of it. Needless to say, I had to again book it downstairs, get all the books. Well, actually, I didn't have to go downstairs. This time the register was working by the time this panel was done. So the register on the same floor that I was on was working, so I ran and got the last hardcover so I can get it signed. Very happy. But anyways, back to the actual panel. Okay, so Tracy Dion is moderating this panel. So off the bat, I'm just thinking, wow, how does this get any better? It has to be a set list of good panelists, and I'm sitting there scrolling who's on the panel? I don't know. Oh my God, it's Tracy Dion. Didn't know anyone on the panel. But needless to say, if you are sitting next to Tracy Dion on a panel about fantasy, then you've got to be pretty freaking amazing or ballsy or write some really amazing work. Just to be even in the presence of Tracy Dion, in my humble opinion. No one asked my opinion, but I'm giving it. Anyway, so the panel consists of, I think, 3 or 4. or 5 other authors. I don't know. So we have Olivia Blake, TJ Klune, RF Wang, and Henna Wars. So those are the rest of the panelists on the book. The only other person that I'm slightly familiar with would be RF Wang, and that's because this person wrote Babel, and while I have not read it, it is everywhere. I hear this book like every other week, and I'm like, okay, one day I'll read this very thick, heavy book. But lucky for me, my friend had an extra copy of The Poppy War, which another pretty thickish book. Not terribly thick, but thickish. So I'm excited to read it. I know it doesn't have the cover because I'm not traveling with all the book cover. She wasn't traveling with the book cover, but anyway, she had an extra copy. She let me buy it off of her because she already had a copy, and I got to have it signed and personalized, which makes me happy. Anyway, back to it. Panelists were amazing, and I really enjoyed it because when we think about fantasy, our mind goes immediately to something like Lord of the Rings, or actually no, Wheel of Time was amazing. I've been reading that. That's top tier. But anything Tolkien, like anything along those lines, it's always been historically white, straight, male, led, cishet, you know. There have been these parameters in which fantasy operates, and I think for me growing up as a child, you know, I loved dealing with dragons. And okay, weird correlation, I'm gonna say in dealing with dragons, you know, they have this thing where you can be the king, and king was regardless of gender. So there were times when there were women kings, there were men kings, and it just reminds me of King Valkyrie from Marvel, from Thor, you know. I also love Tessa Thompson, but like in that sense that in leadership roles or any role, regardless of what your status is, you know, sex and gender doesn't necessarily matter. And like, obviously, yes, it matters. It's part of your identity. But in order to get to certain things, you know, you can be a woman and also want to be a dwarf. You can be like man or male presenting and also want to be like a sire, like all those. So just overall, breaking the construct down of what does it really truly mean to be fantasy, and why can't fantasy be inclusive of all of this? Because what does it mean to be like gay, combining 2 words, like gay, queer, transgender in these worlds? Because in a world where magic exists, or you know, like magic is currency, magic or whatever, or different species, races, all of this exists, why is it that somebody can't have darker skin color? Why is it that somebody can't also be trans? Why is it? So again, break down these social constructs because they're useless. And I personally think that they make books better because 1, they make storylines so much more interesting, and 2, who doesn't want to be represented in books for such a long time? Probably a millennia, not a whole millennia. I don't know. I've not been around that long. But for many lifetimes, a lot of these books have centered a single type of person. And I think, you know, it's time to let somebody else enjoy that. Also, I feel like, I've got a lot of feelings and have a lot of opinions, but I wish I was able to actually record clips of this, but I think I was just so entranced with what everyone was saying and all of the like amazing questions that Tracy was asking, and then on top of that, the amazing responses that the rest of the panelists were giving, especially like TJ Klune. This is a white queer man, obviously, like he's entering the space, but he's writing from the perspective of having found family, and as somebody that, you know, is getting married. And on top of that, I love my family very much, but I also feel like I have made some friendships over the last decade, I could even say 2 decades, where I consider these people to be like my sisters. I would call them my cousin. Like, these are the people that when I get older, I want them by my side no matter what, whether it's like my actual biological family or my found family, or me and just like my partner, because I do consider my partner to be a part of that found family because he's not biologically related to me. I think that's kind of the one of the central parts of fantasy or novel writing in general. outside of like the magic and the lore. It's that found family that comes along with like the pressures and burdens of saving the entire universe, or, you know, returning the One Ring to Mordor, or, you know, it's like as it goes on, it keeps going. But I think it's so important to just, you know, explore that. And another thing that was kind of discussed, and again, I really wish that I recorded some clips. I'm sure you could find it on their website. They must have posted like a virtual recording of it. But like outside of having that found family is the idea that, you know, in these spaces we belong. Whether you are Black, Latina, Asian, Indigenous, queer, gender non-conforming, we all have stories. And I feel like when it comes to fantasy, especially when it comes to world building, when you only have the perspective of, or like, you know, when you only have the perspective of one type of novelist always writing these stories, after a while it kind of becomes one note. And it's also like, well, what else is there to write aside from fantasy or medieval lore or like all these other things? And when you open it up and tell the different perspective from someone like a Black woman or someone that is Indigenous and how they see fantasy, or somebody that is of any of the cultures within the Asian continent, because let's be honest, like Asia is a continent, but again, like several different countries, or any of the countries within the African continent, then they all have different lores. And I'm not saying that they should be monopolized or commodified, which it's really hard to think about these things. Again, my brain is imploding, but it's like, these are all stories that deserve to be told and deserve a space within this sci-fi, fantasy, action world, or genre, I will say. And I love it, only because, like, again, if you haven't read Legendborn, like, it's amazing. And I'm not the best at giving good book reviews. Like, I really can't give a good book review because I'm either gonna be like, I loved it, I hated it, or it's all right. And this is me saying I loved it, not it's all right. Like, I loved it. So read it, and then I'm looking forward to this. Anyway, I'm so sorry. I really do wish that I was able to get film of this panel. If I find it anywhere, I will post it, or if I find the link to it online, then I will also post that. Since I don't have, you know, videos of the panel, again, I'm so sorry for not getting videos of the fantasy panel, because it was mind-blowing, like truly amazing. And I think I sat there just absorbing every single word that was said by these panelists, because they are known for their world building, and they are known for like these amazing characters, and some of them I hadn't heard of. And when I went online and like went to get their books from the library, some of them were like 16-week hold, 28-week hold, and I was like, oh, that's what this is about. But anyway, did not get any footage of this panel, but please enjoy this photo montage of me with the fantasy panelists. Okay, so now we've reached the end, and I'm so sorry I took you on a very long detour, because I said I would show you the dress that I had designed last month, and yes, I do still have it. I do still want to show it to you, and I will show it to you because I absolutely loved it. But I really wanted to share, you know, this part of my little journey with you, just because like I've come back into reading in these last few years, and especially since the pandemic happened, and I just wanted to share, you know, some book recommendations, not really recommendations, but what I've done last week in relation to books, and hope that it then inspires you to go to your local bookstore or local Barnes & Noble or indie bookstore and pick out a book, or go to an event, or just go support it. Also, if anyone's looking for some good romance novel recommendations, I have a bunch. Like, The last 2 years I've read enough that I've kind of cherry-picked my favorites, and I'm going to drop my favorite romance novels, whether it's contemporary or YA, into the bio down below, so you'll just have to check. And also each link is connected to like my bookshop.org, so I will be getting, if you choose to buy it, a small commission, but this is from bookshop.org, so they do support local and indie and small shop bookstores, so you would also be supporting those bookshops because I love them. So don't forget to go to check out your local bookshops because they have local events all the time. It's great. So now we've reached the end where I chit chat. Not really. I'm just kidding. But now we've reached the end. Thank you so much again for watching my videos. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. You could also subscribe for notifications so you can see when I post my next video. You can find me right here on YouTube, this very link, subscribing below or to the side. And you can also find me on Instagram at ClassyRebel or on TikTok at ClassyRebel_. Goodbye, and thanks for watching again.
Dawn, are you out there? Okay, alright, I said the voting booth. You've got to do your duty.
Open.
End of sentence. For the booty. Alright, let's send it Melissa this time. Alright.
I said that at work.
Yes! Okay, and yeah, at your job.